The Billionaire's Forgotten Bride, Complete Story. Part 1, The Humiliation. The Perfect Wedding That Never Was. The grand cathedral sparkled like a jewel box. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting rainbow lights across white marble floors. 300 guests filled the carved wooden pews, their designer clothes and expensive perfumes creating an atmosphere of wealth and power. Outside, reporters crowded behind velvet ropes, cameras ready to capture the wedding of the year. Elena Martinez stood in the bridal suite, staring at her reflection. The wedding dress was everything she had dreamed of since childhood. Ivory silk cascaded down her body like a waterfall, hand-sewn pearls catching the light with every breath. Her dark hair was swept up in an elegant twist, a family heirloom tiara resting on her head. She looked like a princess from a fairy tale. But fairy tales don't prepare you for heartbreak. "You look beautiful, Mija," her mother whispered, tears streaming down her weathered face. Maria Martinez had worked double shifts at their family restaurant for months to help pay for this wedding. Elena's father stood beside her, his rough carpenter's hands fidgeting with his bow tie. They had given everything to see their daughter marry into the Blackwood family. Elena's best friend Sophia adjusted her veil one last time. "Marcus is the luckiest man alive," she said with a bright smile. "Are you ready?" Elena nodded, though her stomach churned with unexpected nervousness. She hadn't seen Marcus since last night. He had been distant at the rehearsal dinner, his phone buzzing constantly with business calls. But that was Marcus, driven, ambitious, always working. It was one of the things she loved about him. They had met 2 years ago when her family's small restaurant catered a corporate event for Blackwood Industries. Marcus had wandered into the kitchen, escaping a boring conversation, and found Elena arranging desserts. He had been charmed by her genuine smile and the way she spoke passionately about food, family, and dreams. He was so different from the cold businessman everyone described. With her, he laughed freely and talked about wanting more than just money and power. Their relationship had been a whirlwind. Expensive dates, romantic getaways, and promises of forever. His family hadn't approved at first. Elena came from nothing, immigrant parents, a struggling business, no connections. But Marcus had insisted. He loved her, he said. Nothing else mattered. The wedding march began to play. Elena's father offered his arm, his eyes shining with pride and tears. They walked through the cathedral doors, and Elena's breath caught. The aisle stretched before her like a bridge to her future. Flowers exploded in white and gold arrangements. Candles flickered. The guests rose as one, turning to watch her approach. But the altar was empty. Elena's steps faltered. Where was Marcus? Her eyes scanned the front of the church. The priest stood waiting, looking uncomfortable. The groomsmen shifted nervously. But the spot where her groom should be standing remained vacant. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. "Keep walking," her father whispered, his grip tightening on her arm. "Maybe he's just running late." But Elena knew. Deep in her bones, she knew something was terribly wrong. Her heart began to pound, each beat echoing in her ears like a warning drum. Still, she continued down the aisle, her legs moving on autopilot while her mind screamed at her to run. She reached the altar. Still no Marcus. The whispers grew louder. Guests checked their phones. Cameras flashed from the doorway as reporters sensed scandal. Elena stood frozen, her bouquet trembling in her white-knuckled grip. Then the side door opened. But it wasn't Marcus who emerged. It was James, Marcus's personal assistant. He walked toward Elena with measured steps, his face carefully blank. In his hand, he carried a white envelope. "Miss Martinez," James said quietly, loud enough only for those at the altar to hear. "Mr. Blackwood asked me to deliver this." Elena stared at the envelope as if it were a snake. "Where is he?" James's professional mask cracked for just a moment, revealing something like pity. "Please, just read the letter." With shaking hands, Elena took the envelope. The paper felt heavy, expensive. Everything Marcus touched was expensive. She tore it open, aware that 300 pairs of eyes watched her every move. The letter was typed, not handwritten. That detail hurt almost as much as the words themselves. Elena. By the time you read this, you will understand that I cannot marry you. This engagement was a mistake born from temporary sentiment. I have responsibilities to my family and my company that supersede personal feelings. I am marrying Vanessa Hartley this afternoon at a private ceremony. This union makes business sense and secures the future of Blackwood Industries through a merger with Hartley Enterprises. You must understand that in my world, love is a luxury I cannot afford. You will be compensated for any embarrassment this causes. My lawyers will contact you regarding a settlement. I ask that you do not attempt to contact me or my family. I wish you well in your future endeavors. Marcus Blackwood. The words blurred as tears filled Elena's eyes. Compensated? Settlement? This was a business transaction to him. Their 2 years together, every kiss, every promise, every I love you, all of it reduced to a liability that needed to be handled. Elena? Her mother's voice cracked. What does it say? Elena couldn't speak. She handed the letter to her father and watched his face turn from confusion to rage to devastation. Around them, the whispers exploded into full conversation. Phones came out as guests began texting and calling, spreading the news. The reporters at the door pushed forward, cameras clicking like hungry insects. He's not coming, her father announced to the crowd, his voice breaking. The wedding is cancelled. The cathedral erupted. Some guests gasped in shock. Others immediately began gossiping, their voices carrying across the space. Elena heard the words clearly. I knew it wouldn't last, she was never right for him, gold digger, what did she expect? Sophia grabbed Elena's arm. We need to get you out of here. Now. But Elena's legs wouldn't move. She stood at the altar in her perfect dress, holding her bouquet of white roses, watching her life collapse around her. Through the crowd, she saw Marcus's mother Victoria Blackwood sitting in the front pew. The older woman's face showed no surprise, only cold satisfaction. She had known. They had all known. A reporter broke through the security, shoving a microphone toward Elena. Miss Martinez. Did you have any idea Marcus was leaving you? How do you feel about him marrying Vanessa Hartley instead? Is it true your family's restaurant was struggling financially? Did you date Marcus Blackwood for his money? The questions came like arrows, each one finding its mark. Elena finally moved, turning to flee, but her heel caught on the long train of her dress. She stumbled, falling hard on the marble steps. The sound of her tiara clattering across the floor seemed impossibly loud. Cameras flashed. Everyone was recording. Elena's humiliation was being broadcast live to the world. Her father and Sophia helped her up. Together, they rushed toward the exit, Elena's torn dress trailing behind her like the tattered remains of her dreams. As they burst through the cathedral doors, even more reporters swarmed them. Questions flew from every direction. Camera flashes blinded her. Miss Martinez. Look here. Elena. Did you know Marcus was cheating? Is it true you're pregnant? How much money did he pay you to leave quietly? That last question made Elena stop. She turned to face the sea of cameras and reporters. For a moment, she saw herself as they must see her, a foolish girl who had dared to dream above her station. A nobody who had tried to marry a billionaire and paid the price for her ambition. I loved him, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But the microphones picked it up. I really loved him. Then she let her family guide her to their old car, leaving behind the cathedral, the flowers, the guests, and the shattered pieces of her heart. The aftermath. The next 24 hours were a nightmare. Elena's humiliation wasn't just local news, it went viral. Videos of her falling at the altar were shared millions of times. Memes were created. Hashtags trended. Hashtag left at the altar, hashtag Blackwood bride, hashtag gold digger fail. The internet was merciless. But the social media mockery was nothing compared to what came next. 2 days after the failed wedding, Elena's father received a phone call. Blackwood Industries was canceling all contracts with Martinez's family restaurant. They had been the restaurant's biggest client, providing steady catering jobs that kept the business afloat. Without that income, they would be bankrupt within months. "They're destroying us," her father said, his voice hollow. "This is revenge for what? For Marcus's own cowardice?" Elena sat at the kitchen table in her parents' small apartment, still wearing sweatpants, her hair unwashed. She hadn't left the house since the wedding. Couldn't face the stares, the whispers, the pity. Her mother brought her soup she couldn't eat. Her father paced like a caged animal, making calls to creditors, begging for extensions. Sophia came by every day, bringing magazines and attempting to cheer her up. Nothing worked. Then came the nausea. At first, Elena blamed it on stress. But when it persisted for a week, accompanied by exhaustion and tender breasts, she knew. A drugstore pregnancy test confirmed her worst fear. She was pregnant with Marcus Blackwood's baby. Elena stared at the 2 pink lines, feeling nothing. No joy, no fear, just a vast emptiness. She was carrying the child of a man who had abandoned her at the altar, who had humiliated her in front of the world, who was now married to someone else. What was she supposed to do? She couldn't tell her parents. They were already drowning in debt and shame. She couldn't tell Sophia, who would want to march to Marcus's office and cause a scene. She definitely couldn't tell Marcus. The letter had been clear. Do not contact him or his family. For 3 days, Elena kept the secret, her mind spinning with impossible choices. Abortion felt wrong, but so did raising a child alone with no money and no future. Telling Marcus might mean he'd pay child support, but it would also mean years of legal battles, custody fights, and more public humiliation. On the 4th day, she made her decision. She would leave. Disappear. Start over somewhere far away where no one knew about the wedding disaster, where she could raise her child in peace, where she could rebuild her life without the shadow of Marcus Blackwood hanging over her. "I'm going to Paris," she told her parents that night at dinner. The words came out steadier than she felt. "My cousin Rosa has a fashion boutique there. She's been asking me to come work with her for years. It's time." Her mother's fork clattered to her plate. "Paris? Mija, that's so far. And what about Dash?" "What about what, Mama?" Elena's voice was sharp. "What do I have here? A broken engagement? A failed business? Everywhere I go, people stare and whisper. I can't breathe in this city anymore." Her father was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "If that's what you need to heal, we support you. But don't run forever, Elena. Someday, you'll need to face this." "Maybe," Elena said. "But not today. Not for a long time." She booked a one-way ticket to Paris, sold everything she owned, and packed a single suitcase. On her last night in the city, she stood on her apartment balcony, looking out at the glittering skyline. Somewhere out there, Marcus was living his life with Vanessa, probably not thinking about Elena at all. "I hope you're happy," she whispered to the darkness. "I hope she gives you everything you wanted. And I hope you never know what you threw away." Then she placed one hand on her still flat stomach, where a tiny life was growing. "But we don't need him," she said softly. "We're going to be fine. Better than fine. We're going to be amazing." The next morning, Elena Martinez boarded a plane to Paris. She left behind her name, her past, and her broken heart. She didn't look back. Part 2, The Return, 2000 words. 5 years later. The fashion show was the event of the Paris season. Models glided down the runway in stunning creations that blurred the line between clothing and art. Crystals caught the light like stars. Silk flowed like water. Each piece told a story of strength rising from ashes, a beauty born from pain. In the front row, fashion editors scribbled notes frantically. Celebrities whispered excitedly. Buyers calculated orders. And backstage, Elena Martinez, now known to the world as Eva Loran, watched her collection come to life. She barely recognized herself these days. Gone was the shy girl who had waited at an altar 5 years ago. The woman reflected in the mirror was polished, powerful, untouchable. Her dark hair fell in sleek waves past her shoulders. Designer clothes hugged her confident frame. Diamond earrings, bought with her own money, caught the light. But the biggest change was in her eyes. They were harder now, colder. The innocent warmth that had once defined her had been burned away, replaced by steel. "Mommy!" A small voice called out. "You're missing it." Elena turned to see her daughter Lily running toward her, the child's nanny trailing apologetically behind. At 4 years old, Lily was beautiful, dark curls bouncing, eyes bright with excitement. She looked like Elena, thankfully. Only her sharp intelligence and the stubborn set of her jaw hinted at her father. "The models are so pretty," Lily exclaimed, throwing her arms around Elena's legs. "When I grow up, can I be a fashion designer like you?" Elena scooped her daughter up, breathing in the sweet scent of her shampoo. "You can be anything you want, mi amor. Anything at all." This was why she had survived. This perfect little person who depended on her, who loved her unconditionally, who made every sacrifice worth it. For Lily, Elena had worked 18-hour days learning fashion design. For Lily, she had built a business from nothing. For Lily, she had transformed herself from a broken girl into a successful woman. The show ended to thunderous applause. Elena stepped onto the stage for her bow, and the crowd rose to their feet. Cameras flashed. People cheered. Fashion critics who had dismissed her first collection 5 years ago now called her a genius. Eva Loran had arrived. At the after-party, champagne flowed and congratulations poured in. Elena smiled graciously, accepted compliments, and made small talk with people who wanted to bask in her success. But her mind was elsewhere, calculating her next move. Because tonight wasn't just about fashion. Tonight was about revenge. "Eva! Darling!" A woman's voice cut through the crowd. Elena turned to see Madeline Chen, a fashion buyer from New York. "I have someone who's dying to meet you." "Vanessa Blackwood, this is Eva Loran." Elena's smile never wavered, even as her heart slammed against her ribs. There she was. Marcus's wife. The woman he had chosen over Elena. Vanessa Blackwood was beautiful in an artificial way, perfect skin from expensive treatments, perfect hair from the best stylists, perfect clothes that cost more than most people's cars. But her eyes were cold, and her smile didn't reach them. "Eva," Vanessa purred, extending a manicured hand. "I'm absolutely obsessed with your work. You must design something for me." Elena shook her hand, noting how soft it was. This woman had never worked a day in her life. "I'm very selective about my clients." "Money isn't an issue," Vanessa said quickly. "My husband owns Blackwood Industries. Perhaps you've heard of it?" Oh, Elena had heard of it. She had heard of it every day for 5 years as she built her empire with one goal in mind: to become powerful enough to destroy it. "I'd need to think about it," Elena said coolly. "I'll have my assistant contact you." Before Vanessa could respond, a commotion at the entrance made everyone turn. A group of men in expensive suits had arrived, clearly important from the way people parted for them. And at the center, tall and commanding, was Marcus Blackwood. Elena's breath stopped. After 5 years of carefully avoiding any event he might attend, any city he might visit, any situation where they might meet, here he was. In her space. At her triumph. He looked older. Harder. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, and his jaw was tighter, as if he spent his days clenching it. But he was still handsome, still magnetic, still the man who had once made her believe in fairy tales. Their eyes met across the room. For a moment, everything stopped. The music faded. The crowd disappeared. It was just Elena and Marcus, staring at each other across 5 years of silence and pain. Did he recognize her? Elena had changed so much, not just her appearance but her entire presence. She was no longer the soft girl he had known. She was Eva Laurent, fashion mogul, self-made success story, untouchable. Marcus's brow furrowed slightly, as if something about her was familiar but he couldn't place it. Then Vanessa appeared at his side, threading her arm through his possessively. Marcus! Look who's here, Eva Laurent, the designer I was telling you about. Eva, this is my husband. Marcus extended his hand automatically, his business smile in place. Ms. Laurent. I've heard impressive things about your work. Elena looked at his hand for a long moment before taking it. His grip was firm, warm. The same hand that had once held hers, that had promised forever, that had signed a letter ending everything. Mr. Blackwood, she said, her voice perfectly polite. How nice to meet you. No flicker of recognition crossed his face. He truly didn't know her. The realization was both liberating and infuriating. She had spent 5 years consumed by what he had done to her, and he didn't even remember her face. Vanessa wants you to design something for our company's anniversary gala, Marcus continued. Naturally, budget is no concern. Whatever you need. I don't think so, Elena said, releasing his hand. As I told your wife, I'm very selective. And I'm afraid your family's reputation doesn't align with my brand values. It was a calculated insult. In business circles, to question someone's reputation was to question their integrity. Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. My family's reputation is impeccable, he said, an edge creeping into his voice. Blackwood Industries is one of the most respected companies in the country. Respected, Elena repeated, letting the word hang. How interesting that you use that word. I would have chosen different adjectives. The tension between them crackled. Vanessa looked confused, clearly not understanding why Eva Laurent was being so hostile. But Marcus studied Elena more carefully now, his sharp business mind sensing something beneath the surface. Have we met before? He asked slowly. You seem familiar. I have that kind of face, Elena said with a dismissive smile. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other guests to attend to. She walked away, her heels clicking confidently against the marble floor, leaving Marcus staring after her with a puzzled expression. In the bathroom, Elena locked herself in a stall and let out a shaky breath. Her hands were trembling. Seeing him again, being so close, smelling his cologne, it had brought everything flooding back. The love, the pain, the humiliation. But she couldn't afford to fall apart. Not now. Not when everything was finally falling into place. She pulled out her phone and made a call. Jacques? It's Eva. I need you to proceed with the acquisition. Yes, all of it. Buy every share you can through the shell companies. I don't care what it costs. I want controlling interest in Blackwood Industries within 6 months. When Elena emerged from the bathroom, her mask was firmly back in place. She rejoined the party, laughed at jokes, made plans with influential people. And she avoided looking at Marcus, even though she could feel his gaze on her throughout the evening. Later that night, after Lily was asleep and the apartment was quiet, Elena stood at her window overlooking Paris. The city glittered below her, beautiful and indifferent. She had built a good life here, a successful business, a beautiful daughter, independence and respect. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Not until Marcus Blackwood understood what it felt like to lose everything. Her phone buzzed. A text from her lawyer, papers are ready. Just need your signature to move forward with the hostile takeover. Elena smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a woman who had spent 5 years planning her revenge, who had carefully positioned every piece on the board, who was finally ready to strike. Checkmate, Marcus, she whispered to the night. Game on. The first strike. 2 weeks after the fashion show, Marcus Blackwood sat in his corner office, staring at documents that made no sense. Someone was buying up shares of Blackwood Industries. Not large amounts at once that would trigger alerts. But slowly, methodically, shares were being acquired through multiple shell corporations that were nearly impossible to trace. "Who is it?" he demanded of his CFO. "Who's making these purchases?" "We don't know, sir. The companies are registered in different countries, all with layers of legal protection. Whoever is behind this knows what they're doing." Marcus's jaw clenched. This was a hostile takeover in slow motion. Someone was coming for his company, and he couldn't see the enemy. His mind went to competitors: Harrison Tech, Steel Industries, the Carmichael Group. But this didn't feel like their style. This felt personal. This felt like revenge. The memory of the fashion show flickered through his mind. Eva Lawrence's cold eyes, her calculated insults, the way she had looked at him with something like hatred. "Have we met before?" he had asked. She had denied it, but the feeling persisted. He pulled up her information online. Eva Laurent. Born in Paris, supposedly. Built her fashion empire from nothing in 5 years. No family mentioned. No personal life documented. It was as if she had appeared fully formed 5 years ago with no past. 5 years ago. Something nagged at the back of Marcus's mind. 5 years ago was when everything had changed. When his father had forced him to marry Vanessa or lose the company. When he had abandoned his own wedding to Elena Martinez, breaking both their hearts to save his family's empire. Elena. Marcus closed his eyes, remembering her face. Sweet, trusting Elena with her genuine smile and her dreams of a simple, happy life. He had loved her, truly loved her, but his father had given him an ultimatum. Marry Vanessa Hartley and secure the merger, or watch Blackwood Industries collapse, taking hundreds of jobs and his family's legacy with it. He had made his choice. He had sacrificed love for duty, personal happiness for family responsibility. He had written that cold letter, had his assistant deliver it, and had married Vanessa that same afternoon in a private ceremony that felt like a funeral. The marriage was loveless, as he had known it would be. Vanessa cared only about his money and status. They lived separate lives in a massive house that echoed with everything unsaid. Marcus buried himself in work, trying to forget the girl he had left at the altar. But now, staring at Eva Lawrence's picture on his computer screen, something clicked. The eyes. Despite the sophisticated makeup and the hardened expression, the eyes were the same. "No," he whispered. "It can't be." But even as he denied it, he knew. Eva Laurent was Elena Martinez. His abandoned bride had transformed herself and come back for revenge. And she was taking his company piece by piece. Marcus grabbed his phone and called his head of security. "Find out everything about Eva Laurent. Everything. Where she's really from, her real name, where she's been for the past 5 years. I want her entire life story on my desk by tomorrow morning." He hung up and stared out the window at the city below. If Eva Laurent was really Elena, then he was in trouble. Because a woman who could reinvent herself so completely, who could build an empire from nothing, who could orchestrate a takeover this sophisticated, that woman was far more dangerous than the sweet girl he remembered. "Elena," he said to the empty office. "What have you become?" Part 3, The Reckoning. Truth and Consequences. The report landed on Marcus's desk at 8 a.m. sharp. His head of security had worked through the night, and what he had uncovered made Marcus's blood run cold. Eva Laurent was indeed Elena Martinez. The trail had been buried under layers of false documents and legal barriers, but it was there. She had arrived in Paris 5 years ago, heavily pregnant and using her cousin's last name. She had worked herself nearly to death designing clothes while raising a daughter alone. A daughter who was now 4 years old. Marcus did the math. His hands shook as realization crashed over him. He had a child. A daughter he had never met. Elena had been pregnant at the wedding. The office spun around him. All these years, he had a little girl growing up without him. Elena had carried that secret, had raised their child alone, while he lived in ignorance. The betrayal cut both ways now. He had abandoned her, but she had hidden his child from him. Unless she had tried to tell him. Unless his letter had been so final, so cruel, that she had decided he didn't deserve to know. Marcus put his head in his hands, memories flooding back. The night before the wedding, Elena had seemed nervous, had wanted to talk about something important. He had brushed her off, too stressed about his father's ultimatum. Had she been trying to tell him about the pregnancy? His phone buzzed. A message from his lawyer. Eva Laurent has acquired 35% of Blackwood Industries shares. If she gets to 51%, she owns your company. Marcus stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. He had to stop this. Had to talk to her. Had to, what? Apologize? Explain? Beg for forgiveness? He had spent 5 years trying to convince himself he had made the right choice. But looking at the picture of Elena Eva in the report, and the smaller photo of a little girl with dark curls and eyes that looked just like his, Marcus knew the truth. He had made the worst mistake of his life. The confrontation. Marcus waited outside Eva Laurent's design studio in Paris. He had flown overnight, leaving Vanessa behind with a vague excuse about business. His security team had tried to come with him, but he had refused. This was something he needed to do alone. When Elena emerged from the building at 6 p.m., she was holding Lily's hand. The little girl was chattering about her day at preschool, her animated voice carrying across the street. Elena laughed at something her daughter said, and Marcus's heart clenched. He had never seen her laugh like that, free and genuine and full of joy. He stepped out of the shadows. Elena. She froze. Slowly, very slowly, she turned to face him. Her expression shifted from shock to fury in the space of a heartbeat. Her name is Eva, she said coldly. Elena died 5 years ago at an altar in a cathedral. Mommy? Lily looked up at her mother, then at Marcus. Who is that man? No one important, Elena said, her voice tight. Come on, sweetie. Let's go home. Wait. Marcus stepped forward. Please. We need to talk. We have nothing to discuss. We have a daughter to discuss. The words hung in the air between them. Lily looked confused. Elena's face went pale. Mrs. Chen, Elena called to a woman nearby, the nanny from the fashion show. Please take Lily home. I'll be there soon. But Mommy dash. Now, Lily. The little girl pouted but went with the nanny, glancing back at Marcus with curious eyes. Once they were gone, Elena turned on Marcus with barely controlled rage. How dare you, she hissed. How dare you come here, to my city, approaching my daughter dash. Our daughter, Marcus interrupted. She's mine too, isn't she? You have no rights to her. You gave those up when you left me at the altar. When you married someone else. When you made it very clear that I was nothing to you. That's not true. Elena, if you would just let me explain dash. Explain? Elena's laugh was bitter. Oh, this should be good. Please, Marcus, explain to me how you left me standing in front of 300 people. Explain the letter you sent with your assistant instead of having the courage to face me yourself. Explain how you married Vanessa the same day. I'm dying to hear your explanation. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. My father gave me an ultimatum. Marry Vanessa and save the company, or marry you and watch everything collapse. Hundreds of people would have lost their jobs. My family's legacy would have been destroyed. I had to choose between love and responsibility. And you chose responsibility, Elena said flatly. You chose money and power over me. Over us. I chose to protect people. Marcus's voice rose. Do you think it was easy? Do you think I wanted to hurt you? I don't care what you wanted. I care what you did. Elena was shouting now, tears streaming down her face. You humiliated me. You destroyed my family. We lost everything because of you. And when I found out I was pregnant, I had no one. I was alone and scared and broke, and you were off living your perfect life with your perfect wife. My life isn't perfect, Marcus said quietly. My marriage is a disaster. Vanessa and I barely speak. I work 18 hours a day to avoid going home. I haven't been happy a single day since I left that cathedral. Good, Elena spat. I hope you've been miserable. I hope you've suffered. Because I have. Every single day for 5 years, I've suffered. And you know what? I used that suffering. I transformed it into motivation. I became stronger, richer, more successful than you ever imagined I could be. And now I'm going to take everything from you, just like you took everything from me. The hostile takeover. Brilliant, isn't it? Elena's smile was cruel. I own 35% of your company already. By next month, I'll have 51%. And then I'm going to destroy Blackwood Industries from the inside out. I'm going to dismantle everything your family built. And you're going to watch, helpless, just like I watched my dreams die 5 years ago. Marcus felt like he'd been punched. Elena, please. Revenge won't heal you. It won't change what happened. But it will feel really, really good. She turned to walk away, but Marcus grabbed her arm. What about Lily? She deserves to know her father. Elena jerked away from his touch. Lily has everything she needs. She doesn't need a father who abandons people when things get difficult. I want to be in her life. I want to know my daughter. Too bad. You don't get to walk away and then waltz back in when it's convenient. That's not how it works. Then I'll fight you in court. I'll sue for custody. I'll tell the world that you hid my child from me. Elena stepped very close to him, her eyes blazing. Go ahead. Try it. I have armies of lawyers and unlimited funds. And more importantly, I have 5 years of being Lily's only parent. What do you have? A loveless marriage, a company that's crumbling, and a reputation for breaking promises. She was right, and Marcus knew it. In a custody battle, she would win. She had everything: stability, dedication, a proven track record as a parent. He had nothing except biological connection. Please, he said, his voice breaking. Don't do this. Don't take my company and don't keep me from my daughter. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did to you. If I could go back and change it, I would. But you can't, Elena said softly. That's the thing about choices, Marcus. You made yours. Now you get to live with the consequences. She walked away, leaving Marcus standing alone on the Paris street as evening fell around him. The real enemy. But Elena couldn't focus on revenge anymore. Seeing Marcus again, hearing the pain in his voice, looking into eyes that matched her daughter's, it had cracked something inside her. The armor she had built so carefully was developing fissures. That night, she sat in Lily's room, watching her daughter sleep. The little girl clutched a stuffed rabbit, her face peaceful and innocent. What kind of example was Elena setting? Teaching Lily that revenge was more important than forgiveness? That destroying others was the path to happiness? Her phone rang. A blocked number. Elena answered cautiously. Elena Martinez? A woman's voice, familiar but she couldn't place it. Who is this? Victoria Blackwood. Marcus's mother. Elena's grip tightened on the phone. How did you get this number? That's not important. What's important is that we talk about what really happened 5 years ago. About who really destroyed your wedding. Elena's heart began to pound. What do you mean? Meet me tomorrow. Café Laurent on the Champs-Élysées, noon. Come alone. If you want the truth about why Marcus left you, I'll tell you everything. The line went dead. Elena stared at the phone, her mind racing. This could be a trap. But it could also be the missing piece of the puzzle. All these years, she had blamed Marcus for everything. But Victoria Blackwood had sat in that cathedral, completely unsurprised by her son's absence. What did she know? The next day, Elena arrived at the cafe early, choosing a table where she could see all the entrances.